The looming Nairobi dam crisis is our focus for this next hour. We talked about this as a news fix, as a news item earlier in the week. The fact that essentially the Nairobi dam is, what is it? It's full, one, saturated, two, about to burst its walls. I said we don't use banks or walls, but we'll just banks. Okay. Embankment. Okay. And we'll figure out where are we? Are we just living on borrowed time right now, waiting for a disaster to happen? What mitigation is happening? We have an engineer from the Nairobi River Commission. That is Engineer Mumo Musuva. He's a commissioner there discussing this crisis. Good morning, Mumo.
Morning. I'm happy to be promoted to engineer, but I'm actually an architect.
It's architect. I was like, are you an architect or an engineer? You know what? Your sisters in the world of professions, architects and engineers, right? Always working in tandem.
We blame you both when things don't work.
Depends.
Always working in tandem.
Well, it's always a competition on who's on top of the other, who's at the top of the food chain. Yeah. Yeah. So that's for another show.
Depends on, I suppose, what you value more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But it's good to have you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys.
You'll tell us about the Nairobi Dam.
Yeah.
Many people don't even know where that dam is.
Yeah.
The dam thing.
Yeah.
And they have never even heard that there's a Nairobi Dam.
Yeah.
I know you're saying that there's a dam that's about to burst its embankment.
Right.
You'll educate us about that and why and what as the Nairobi Rivers Commission is doing.
Yeah.
But first, Mariam is going to give you the day's quote.
Okay.
Let's hear your thoughts around it.
Easy one. Today comes courtesy of Hannah Arendt. She's was an American historian and philosopher. And she said, the most radical revolutionary will become a conservative the day after the revolution.
The most radical revolutionary will become a conservative the day after. Okay. Well, probably refers to, I think this could be a very interesting one. You have lots of people out there. When I say out there, I mean out of business or public service who are always critical of what they see. And it seems to be a very typical habit of us, people of this country. But when you actually put in the hot seat, as Eric puts it, and you actually get to see and size the situation, and reality sinks in, then you actually tone down and pace down, because the challenge ahead and what needs to be done to sort that out, the reality hits you. So I think that's probably what that means.
I love your interpretation of it, because you're right. Sometimes it's easy to look and be like, Eric akuuliza hiyo swali, hata hii kazi anaelewa kweli. Until the day you come and try and do Eric's job.
Absolutely.
And you're like,
Absolutely.
Mumo, mnafanyanga nini huko Nairobi River? What do you do on a day? Okay, but for real, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I'm sure you know about the Rivers Commission. It was set up in 2022, December, by His Excellency the President and the Governor of Nairobi. And the Rivers Commission was many years in the making. I've been working on regeneration of the rivers of Nairobi for about 24 years now. A lot of it advocacy from private sector side, and understanding the enormous challenges that are needed to address the problems of the rivers of Nairobi.
Right.
And so we lobbied, and we got, His Excellency is quite interesting, because for him this is actually not just a thing to fix, but also an issue of intellectual interest, because many people don't know that he's done his PhD he's an environmentalist and specializing in matters to do with rivers, wetlands, and that sort of thing. So for him, it was a very natural concept for him to understand.
Right.
And what has always been the case is that you have many arms of government, both at national and county level, doing something with the rivers, and civil society, but all these efforts are not coordinated, they're not integrated. The main purpose of the commission was really to come and collate, coordinate, monitor, and try and get a unified direction towards addressing the issues of the rivers of Nairobi. And if you remember, Eric, when we were last together, I was telling you that, more than half of Nairobi is actually within a floodplain area. So, drainage is a big problem. And I know in the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of messages being put out there on both social media and others, giving a lot of the history of, the city. There was objection to setting it up here because of the swamps and the drainage issues, but for whatever reason that happened.
We are where we are.
We are where we are. And we seem to have very short-term memories when it comes to matters to do with flooding, because these flooding events that we've seen this year are not new. We were talking about it the other time, and everyone always goes back to the El Nino of 97. But actually, if you go back to the history of this city, there are recorded floods that have even been more severe, dating back to as old as this city started taking records.
Wow.
So it's a systemic issue. It's part of us. And just like the anecdote you started with, we talk about it, but when you get in there, you actually realize, oh my goodness, this is a real challenge, but we need to fix it. And I feel very strongly that we have the best opportunity now to do it. If we miss this boat with the efforts that are being put in and the public awareness about the challenges, then I don't know what we're going to do about that.
I bet you someone said that in 97 during El Nino. Someone was like, if we miss this boat, and then here we are.
We have to do something now.
We have to do something. Act quickly.
We always say that, but and it's easy to say until you actually get to understand the science behind it. But one thing that I've learned over the years is that when you have complex problems, it's very hard for people to wrap themselves around it. I mean, for me, the understanding that I now have is 20 years of working on this. I mean, if you just touch on this at the beginning, you see the problem, but just to understand how to solve it is a lot harder. But I think we've got the best opportunity now to fix these problems.
Okay.
Architect, Nairobi doesn't have rivers. Nairobi has streams.
No.
If we speak about it. I mean, capital cities, we see cities with rivers, River Thames.
Or like the Thames.
And such. The things that we have here are basically things that can be managed. It's water channels.
Eric, just because there's no fancy bridge over it doesn't mean it's not a river.
Look at River Tana.
Okay.
And look at what you call River what? Bagathi.
Bagathi River.
Look at what you call Nairobi River. I mean, just look at these things that we call rivers in Nairobi that are giving us headaches.
Well,
I'm talking about it from that scale of if Danube is not giving those cities a problem, or the river in New York, or the river in London, if all these rivers are not giving countries problems, or even the river that is passing through Juba, up here,
the Nile.
Yes.
So
why are streams giving us problems?
Well, maybe that's part of the problem, is that we classify rivers depending on our thinking and understanding, and ignore the realities that come with them.
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Sorry.
When you have a light bulb, I'm so sorry to interrupt. It's just hit me that River Road is called River Road because the river
is next to the road.
Right next to it.
Well, let's look at it this way. And Eric, probably that's half the problem, is that we always have thought of the rivers in Nairobi as streams, and therefore we don't respect them for what they are. Now, if you take the Thames River in London, it has a very unique characteristic, and sometimes in the sort of engineering world, you call it morphology. It's actually connected to the ocean. And because of that connection, it's a tidal river. It behaves in a very different way. The rivers in Nairobi are collector rivers, and they are transmitting water from watersheds, largely coming from the Aberdares, and part of it coming from the Ngong Hills and that other area. You have lots of underground rivers and streams, and that's why during the dry season, you still have water flowing through them. But their main part is transmission of and collection of water that's then transmitted to the wider river basin system. So in our case, the rivers of Nairobi are in the upper catchment area of the Athi, Galana Sabaki ecosystem. And just to give you a context of how important that is, by the time you get to my village hometown of Makueni, Wote, 60% of the volume of the water has been generated through that basin. And these are all series of what you're calling streams, which are really rivers, but behaving in a different way to what you have with the Thames. Then you have ecosystems around that, like swamps and wetland areas, which also play a different role. Part of it is attenuation, because when you have rain events, they act as absorbents to that. But in the dry season, they also release some of that water, pole, and keep that system going. So no, it's not that we have streams. We do have rivers. They're just a different kind of river and behave in a different way. And I was having a conversation the other day with someone who said, well, why don't you guys do like what they've done in Venice and build structures, you know, the let's move the river sort of thing.
Oh gosh, but the Venice that is currently underwater.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, Venice has a different characteristic because it's a tidal river linked to the ocean. So global warming is what is increasing its levels. So all of them behave in different ways, and we must respect them for what they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's come into Nairobi Dam. I'm going to still come back into why these streams are disturbing us. Because, look, the volumes in these rivers of ours keeps fluctuating, and when it's a lot, it's what we are seeing.
Yeah.
And we can tell when it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
So let's start with Nairobi Dam.
Yeah.
Where is Nairobi Dam?
Well, Nairobi Dam is located along what is the Ngong River. So Nairobi has got actually, we say 3 major rivers, but actually they're about 5. You count the Nairobi River itself, which has the Kirichwa Kubwa, Kirichwa Ndogo, and Nairobi River tributaries. You've got the Mathare River, which has the Kibagare, Getathuru, Ruaka, and other tributaries that are coming from Kiambu area. Then you've got the Ngong River, which is the one we know that rises in Karen, Langata, Dagoretti Forest. Actually, that's where it starts from mostly. And you have feeding into that the Miotoni River, which is a tributary of that. Then you have the Bagathi, the Masai River, the one that separates Nairobi from Masai land, which also rises from the Ngongs. So the Nairobi Dam is situated along the Ngong Motoine River. Now, it's a very interesting one because it was built in 1953 by the Nairobi city. I don't know if it was a municipality then, probably. And the story has always been that it was built as a water reservoir, emergency water reservoir for the city. But actually, if you study its location carefully and you look at the topography of the land, where it's currently situated at the bottom edge of Kibera is fairly high level ground compared to when you get to Nairobi West, South Sea, industrial area side. Low-lying lands. And I mean, it is possibly the most natural place to locate a dam. But when you think about it, by locating it there, the area which it collects water from, which is what you call a watershed or a catchment area, going back to the Dagoretti Forest, is about 40 square kilometers. So it's picking up water from Dagoretti, Ngong, Karen, Langata, from high-level areas. And when that water is coming down, it's literally falling to these flat areas. So the dam's purpose is largely to attenuate flooding. And I can only imagine, because we were not there in 1953 when they were doing this, but that low-lying area of Nairobi West, when they were thinking about expanding the city, needed to have some way of checking the floods. So build a dam, capture the water, slow the velocity at which it's coming at, so it allows you to be able to build further down areas. And if we look at, when you get to Bagathi Road, look at what's happening around Nairobi West, South Sea. There's been elements of canalization that were done in the 60s. A lot of that was actually interconnected with the dam. So that's actually a big part of the location and the function of the dam. Of course, when you have the ability to collect water, then you can use it for other things. So we talk about recreation. We always have fond memories of the sailing club and all of that.
And we have pictures.
Many
people don't have fond memories.
Me, I think they are.
I have seen pictures
of the residents of Nairobi.
Have no memory of that.
I have
no knowledge.
seen pictures. And I've been to Langata, the sailing club. And the first time I went to the sailing club in Langata, I was like, what do you mean sailing in Langata? Because it does not make sense until you see the pictures. And people used to go in the dam and sail.
Exactly. So, but that's a secondary benefit. I mean, there was that. There was the use of the water for emergency supply for fire. We have challenges with that in the city.
Right.
Of course, when you think about it as well, it could be used for water supply or some form of limited water usage. But, when you reflect on it, and I know we'll talk about, the challenges with the dam now and South Sea, a lot of the problems we're seeing with the flooding now, in retrospect, can be related to the challenges we're seeing with the dam, at least in that particular area.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the original size of the dam and where it's located, vis-a-vis what it is right now, have they changed?
Hugely. So the dam, just some stats about it. What you call the dam is actually the structure, what the embankment. That's the science. Then you have the reservoir, which
is the wall.
Is the wall. Okay. Yeah, right. So, and that's technically what you call the dam. Then you have the reservoir of the dam, which is now the backwater that the dam holds back. And then there's a thing that's been talked about called a spillway. And the spillway purpose is to allow the overflow, safe overflow or discharge of water that's passing through. Because once the dam fills up, the water has to pass through. And that's a very important piece of structure. And I'll talk about the importance of that in relation to what happened in Solai. Because we have to make some comparisons with the tragedy we had in 2018 in Solai. So the storage capacity of the dam as it's designed is just slightly over 98,000 cubic meter of volume, and it covered about 31 acres. This starts from the Water Resource Authority. And right now, with all the siltation that's happened...
Sorry, how many liters of?
98,000 cubic meters of water.
Okay.
Size of land again?
About 31 acres. That's the surface area of the water mass that was designed, or the reservoir water mass. But a lot of that has disappeared. I think probably more than 90% of it has been either silted or we may have... and I think this is a very strong possibility, some of the plastic waste floating above dead water below the dam. So it's got some interesting challenges because of the problems that started with that. So it's classified as the Water Resource Authority say it's an SD3 dam. It's a Category 3 dam because of its catchment area. But it's not a small dam by all intents and purposes. The wall or embankment, I think it's approximately about 12 meters. That's how tall it is. And the safety discharge height is about 2.6 meters between the top of the wall and the spillway. So it has a capacity of about 2 meters high, 2.6 meters high before it overflows the wall itself.
Okay.
And what's interesting in this last floods is that the water overflew the wall, which is a very, very bad sign. When you have that aspect of overtopping, they call it overtopping, where the water is now not just discharging through the spillway, but is actually topping over the dam.
The entire embankment.
Then you're in big problems. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's being flagged as a
looming crisis.
Looming crisis, yeah.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
We come back and you tell us that crisis.
Yeah.
How it's looking like. What your science is telling you in terms of how much timeline do we have, and then what you're doing about it.
Super.
27 minutes after 8, we are having a conversation with architect Mumo Musuva. He is a commissioner with the Nairobi Rivers Commission. The Nairobi Dam crisis. There's a crisis looming. Actually, it's already here with us. The Water Resource Authority has already said this is already an issue. Move immediately. So they are working with the city county government to tell us how to move and where and who needs to move. And so that's what we're asking. We'll be back shortly. Jogona G on YouTube says, if you do a simple Google search on Nairobi Dam and the view of what corruption is comes out clearly, how was infrastructure executed without consideration of a dam with such a holding capacity of water? Francis Odhiambo is asking, can architect Mumo talk a bit about the affordable houses that are being built along the dam in Kibra, Undugu area, the river feeding the dams to have affordable houses built along it? Yeah, architects.
You know, actually, this was a question. It was on my list of questions to ask CS for housing, public works, land, Alice Wahome yesterday. I was like, now that we're dealing with climate crisis, are any of these affordable housing structures on riparian land?
Yeah.
But go on, architect.
Super. So do you want me to start with the affordable housing?
Yeah.
Which is the one that is eliciting a lot of interesting reactions. So when you look at what they're building right now, and again, it's one of those things that we also have to just confirm on the ground. The stream that's passing in front of those houses is one of the drains that's coming down to the dam. So remember we talked about Eric's streams and rivers and that sort of thing.
Brooks.
And
Brooks.
and Brooks and all of that, yeah. And we've had a good look at that area.
Right.
And we noticed that the rivers have been moved a lot, and we're finding a lot of this in the informal settlements and other areas. Depending on how people are building, they're moving the rivers and that sort of thing. So what we've actually done is asked a team to go and have a look at that carefully. And again, you know, these floods are fantastic because they're also bringing up all these issues that need to be addressed.
They are letting the rivers speak.
Let the rivers speak and you know, do the right thing. But I can assure you, I mean, once the assessments are done, then the correct things will be done to sort that out. Yeah, but and again, this has got the full support of government and county that, you know, we need to do the right thing around the rivers. Yeah, yeah.
Jogona's issue is on. So we had this dam. There was an entire plan on the reason why this dam was built.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've seen encroachment over time.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
So, and that's a very interesting question. So, you know, going back to where the dam started getting beaten, I think some of the assessments are saying that the El Nino of 1997 was probably where things started going wrong. So the floods of 97 started causing what you call siltation, and because the dam has not been or was not being maintained, that started causing degradation there. Then again, we come back to this big problem we have in this country called corruption, because there's no reason why the dam riparian should have been occupied except for that. And these are some of the issues that we're also dealing on other sectors of the river and working very hard to correct. So you have siltation, you have encroachment, you have waste dumping, and a lot of that coming from Kibera. You remember the famous flying toilets?
Yeah.
Where do they go?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So all of that is thrown to that stream next to AHP and others. There are about 2 or 3 of those, and they are conveyed by the rivers or the streams to the dam.
Right.
So I always tell people that Nairobi Dam right now is a big septic tank because it's collecting a lot of that flying toilets and sewage discharge to it. And that is actually what led to, if you remember, we had a big hyacinth crisis with the dam. And the hyacinth came about because the dam was now, the water was full of nutrients from the flying toilets and the sewage.
Oh my.
And then the hyacinth started altering the characteristics of the dam itself, the water. In science terms, actually, hyacinth is not bad because actually it does help clean the water to some extent. But it comes there because there's nutrients in the water and it exists before that. So there was always a big campaign about clearing the hyacinth to deal with the dam, but siltation has continued. Encroachment has compounded the problem, and right now, if you go there, other than the riparian that has been encroached on both sides, the North Bank in Kibera and the South Bank in Nairobi Dam Estate, you have now people who've built on top of the floating. Remember, I told you about the floating mass of earth above the dam. People who've actually encroached on that, and that's a big public safety problem, and we need to remove them for their own safety in addition to reclaiming the dam. So this degradation has been happening now over the last 20 plus years. If you take 98 to now, that's probably another 22 years, and or 24 years. And you know, we have to sort that out. And I know there's been various discussions about whether we need the dam. You know, there's always push about, you know, this is now becoming prime real estate and that sort of thing. Well, it is being converted to that by encroachment anyway. If we don't have that dam, I go back to where we started. Nairobi West, South Sea, industrial area, the issues around flooding in those areas will only continue to get worse because we have no capacity to attenuate or to mitigate for flooding. So when WRA did the assessment last week, His Excellency the Governor was there. He had a team, and we had a whole team, multi-agency team looking at it. They actually presented the options. They said, guys, do we decommission this dam? It's a huge public safety issue. And their conclusion was that if we do, then we are creating an even bigger problem with continued and expanded flooding downstream. So the conclusion is that we must restore that dam. It's a necessity, and we need to do that urgently, in addition to addressing the emergent issues which we'll talk about.
What's the crisis?
So the crisis is this. Number one, the dam has been for a long time showing signs of hydraulic failure. Now, hydraulic failure is basically saying the structure and the function of the dam is not what it was designed for. So you have the overtopping I talked about. Because of the filled silt, the dam, the water is coming so much that the spillway area is not sufficient to carry that volume of water, so it's now overtopping. And when you start having overtopping, then you start getting the erosion of that earth embankment, and actually there are signs of that. If you walk along that earth embankment, it's not what it was before, and that's the beginning of structural failure on these embankment structures. The second issue is the spillway, and the spillway has been damaged over time, probably due to lack of maintenance, but probably also because of the volume of water that's coming through, with the dam not having the capacity to absorb that, and it's causing failure. Now, why this is important is when you look at the Solai Dam tragedy, there were many issues that caused that dam to fail. But one of the big ones that was picked out in the assessment report was that it didn't have a spillway. So, of course, the water wasn't getting enough capacity to flow out. So the risk here is that if the spillway for the dam is damaged and the capacity for the dam to safely transmit the water out is damaged, and the dam is silted, meaning that it has no volume of water to absorb that, then those could be some of the issues that could actually hasten its failure. So siltation and those are the main things. We also have other emergent issues, like you have encroachment of the dam's riparian. There's a big apartment block that's just built at the toe of the dam between Nyayo High Rise. It's called SIFA, and that is literally on the structure, or just before the structure of the dam. And we've got a team of experts who actually will start working from tomorrow, looking at doing geotechnical assessments on the wall. But there are signs that the structure has been showing shear failure around that area,
Right.
Meaning, cracks in the structure itself, and these will need to be addressed as part of the rehabilitation plan. But we should not have structures like that in front of the dam, not just from a structural safety perspective,
Right.
but in the unlikely event, and we have to have a flood hazard and collapse risk assessment, which we will be doing as part of this exercise. But you must never have structures like that in front of the dam.
Yeah.
Because if that dam breaches or breaks,
Yeah.
Solai killed 48 people, but that was a small village at the bottom of that. And it doesn't make it any smaller. But here you've got, Nyayo High Rise, you've got Nairobi West. I don't want to speculate, but just imagine that 98,000 or the sludge in there just madly slowing down there, and the risk.
A lot. So
huge
then,
problem.
Architect.
Yeah.
The notice from the Water Resource Authority, I don't know if you have a copy of it there.
Yeah.
It was handwritten.
Yeah.
And it says move immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately was last week.
Yeah.
Or does immediately have, different interpretations when it comes to...
And before it goes into immediately, when you said what's the crisis, like I've heard you, what are we likely looking at?
Yes.
Is it a bursting of embankments, or is it a slow erosion and increased flooding, or do we not know?
I think it's a combination of all those, but let me not speak, and maybe we can come back after the risk assessment, the detailed assessment has been done. But we can't wait for disaster to happen. And I think even as we are working towards reclaiming the rivers of Nairobi, riparian areas and others, this is an important part. What I can say is that the perennial flooding that you're seeing in Nairobi West, Pagathi Road, others, and there are many other contributing factors, because there are people who have encroached in the riparian downstream and contributed to that. Without sorting out Nairobi Dam, it'll only get worse. And we are now in the space of climate change. We unfortunately are in the space of rapid urbanization. So a lot of the 40 square kilometers upstream, which was agricultural land, which had some element of absorption capacity, is got apartments and that sort of thing coming. So the volume of water that will keep coming down Motoine, Ngong River will only increase over time. So, those are not just small issues. We have the immediate issues that we need to address from a public safety perspective, but we must also think ahead, because if we don't solve Nairobi Dam, we are not, we'll be back here again, Eric, in the El Nino, and we'll talk about how South Sea, Nairobi West is flooding, and forget that the dam has a big part in attenuating that. Yeah.
So
you asked
crisis
what's
here is, that structurally, we are seeing as if this dam is not the way it should be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just that alone, we're looking at downstream, the likely population that's likely to be affected.
Right.
Now, that's what brings back to my immediate question.
Yeah.
Last week, there was a survey and WRA issuing its notice.
Yeah.
But you're talking about like engineers going there tomorrow.
Yeah.
The Water Resource Authority doing this next week.
Yeah.
Since last week, have there been engineers who've actually gone there and saying this is a crisis, but also a danger that can, if we just need one rain for these things to give? Has there been that assessment?
Yeah, they've done that. I mean, the WRA report is actually that.
Okay.
So,
and what does it say?
It basically says the things that I've told you about the signs of structural failure, the overtopping of the dam, and it comes up with actually 3 recommendations. One is we must restore that dam, if not for its sake, for the reasons of flooding downstream. Second, it says we need to do a detailed what they call a geotechnical assessment of the structure, because we're seeing signs of failure. We've seen the overtopping, the spillway is damaged.
Okay.
So the immediate action is to fix the spillway as they look at the structure. So that's what they're working on. And I can assure you...
Have they started that?
Well, it has to be designed, it has to be resolved. They have to reassess the dam as it is. Number three, because the direction now is to recover that dam, they have to come up with an engineering and cost plan for that. So moving people out is a need that needs to be done now for public safety, even as we address the dam. As I said, I'll only be able to tell you more once we see
the risk assessment.
The risk assessment for that.
Has that started?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's a team of specialists who are looking at that.
What are our timelines?
Or by next week we must have answers. We can't. It's not a long thing. It has to be immediate in terms of what needs to be done. Of course, it's a public. It's not just a public interest issue, but it's also an engineering solution. So once that assessment is done and the costings are looked at, then the report will be presented. And I'm assured that from the various conversations at various offices that this is top priority.
Okay.
But let me come back to an important thing, and I really hope that those who are listening to this show realize that even as these solutions are being addressed, people need to heed to the advice being given. Those who are in the riparian areas, the bottom end of the dam, where the notices have been issued, need to move, because even as we have the national government administration teams carrying out that exercise, the typical Kenyan problem, hiyo sio shida yangu mpaka inifikie. And we're getting a lot of resistance from people who will resist moving even when these sort of things are issued. So I know that is being addressed, and there's a lot of double effort to ensure people move. But I think as citizens, we really should take these warnings seriously.
Who needs to move, Mumo? Tell us exactly where?
Yeah, so number one, from a high-risk perspective, the apartments just below the dam, which should not be there, Sifa apartments and a section of the Nyayo high-rise that has been flagged, they need to move immediately. The bottom end of Bagathi Road, when you pass the administration police section, and again, that is one of those floodplain areas that need to be recovered and are being recovered as part of this exercise, need to also move.
So the bottom part of Bagathi Road?
Yeah.
Bottom coming from Langata Road or coming from this other side?
From Bagathi Way. So the dam falls down.
Yeah.
The area of the dam comes up to Bagathi and it crosses Bagathi Road.
Okay.
So there's been encroachments between the dam and Bagathi Road. And
see, before the climb, quite literally.
Before the climb, okay. Yes, correct. Then when you cross Bagathi Road, you have the administration police camp. Then you go down towards...
Opposite it is an estate.
Exactly.
Right.
And by the way, I know you have pictures of this, but when we had the floods 2 weeks ago, there's an apartment that's actually been built next to the river, and they were flooded, I think, to the first floor. Those are the people who need to move. But the flood risk assessment that will be done will also say what else needs to be done. But this is the immediate now that needs to be done, even as we sort that out. Yeah.
Dam estate itself?
Dam estate is upstream.
Yeah.
I think they are okay. They're outside of the dam riparian, but you have people around those who have encroached the dam, and they need to move as well. Yeah.
So past the AP place, and opposite there is the estate there.
Yeah.
Then you come and cross Langata Road.
Yeah.
Again, there are more apartments down there.
Yeah, correct.
This is on the side of Nairobi West.
Correct, yeah.
Coming into South Sea.
Yeah, and WRA, not WRA, the multi-agency team that is currently doing the riparian demarcation has actually, we've had this past week and this week we've had about five public sensitization meetings with community members and the leadership. And I must actually commend the local MCAs in that area. They've actually been, people have come out because this thing is real. It's affecting people's lives, and there's been a lot of positive reaction from the leadership now, encouraging people to move. They're actually the ones who are helping the multi-agency team point out where they see structures and buildings that are impeding the water flow, and the notices are being issued. And that's what we need. But for now, for the sake of public safety, the areas I've mentioned, which is what WRA have highlighted, people need to move. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what's happening on the ground. Chiefs and administration officials knocking on doors and telling people specifically, you need to move?
Yeah.
Or is it just notices that are being given at the chief's office?
Right.
You find a notice. Are people actually being told door to door, knock on people's doors and telling them, you need to move?
I believe they are. I only say this because, speaking to the deputy county commissioners, the county commissioners, and there's coordination groups that have been set up within these multi-agency teams, and the action being reported is that they're doing that. But also don't forget, remember I mentioned we are engaging with the citizens. So we have commissioners of the Nairobi Rivers Commission together with multi-agency teams meeting people on from last week up to now, and calling town hall meetings and explaining to them exactly what I'm telling you. So
I'm
yes.
not hearing confidence. I'm sorry, architect.
Yeah.
I would have loved to hear that within a few days, chiefs, assistant chiefs, Nyumba Kumi people have actually identified the number of people that are in the affected houses.
Right.
Yeah.
Per
Right?
household.
Per household.
Yeah.
And said we have X number of people who need to move.
Yeah.
And then every day, an update of out of the 300,000 people, 100 have moved. Tomorrow, we need to move another 150.
Yeah.
We are saying that within the next 14 days,
Right.
all 300,000 must have moved.
Yeah. Well,
Is there anything like that where this multi-agency thingamajiggy is actually looking at it and saying, these are the people who need to move,
yeah.
these have moved,
Yeah.
these are the concerns coming out,
Yeah.
this is how we are addressing the concerns.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, by Easter, we should not have any of these people.
Anybody within that area.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, I don't want to lie because I can only tell you what I'm seeing in the public, in the coordination committee,
Right.
and I would like to believe that that's what they're doing because that's exactly what is being asked of them to do.
Who's in charge of this?
It's being driven by the county commissioner for that region, Nairobi West region, and the DCCs for that area, because we're working through the national government administration team, and that's where the chiefs are.
Okay.
But I think point taken, and I think those are some of the things need to be
reporting to. I mean, because their job
Yeah.
is to execute.
Yeah.
But then there's somebody now who's looking, and I don't know whether it should be the commission or the governor or whoever.
Yeah.
Engineers are on site.
Yeah.
They are doing the structural thing.
Yeah.
Administrators are on the ground. They are talking to the people.
Yeah.
Ward admins and whoever is dealing with this.
Yeah.
Red Cross is already on alert, and this is where we're housing people temporarily as they move, because maybe there are people who may not be able to move immediately. They can move to a holding place.
Yeah.
Come here, we'll shelter you for 5 days as you establish
Find your alternative. Yeah, and
because we are talking about a big thing. The way you've painted this picture.
No, it's a big challenge.
If that dam gives way, we shall not be talking the way we are talking here today.
No, it'll be a big problem. And again, as I said, all the government agencies that would deal with these disaster responses are active. What I don't want to do is lie to you and say X number of people have been identified and Y number. And I think these are stats that we can share. But I can assure you, and again, back to where we started off with the anecdote, it's always easy to say these things looking from the outside. But when you're in there, it's a major logistical challenge, but I can assure you that this is receiving the attention of the highest order from what I see from where I am. But
Wangui is asking, move to where? Spillway to where? Even the spillway, where does the spillway go into?
Well, the spillway, remember what I said, the spillway is discharging the excess water to the river.
Into the river, okay.
So the dam is part of the river ecosystem, and again, these are all safety issues. If that thing is not functioning the way it should, it's a safety issue, and could cause many. So there are a lot of things that need to be done. But I hope the message that I leave with here is that, to our fellow Kenyan citizens, those who are in those areas that I've mentioned, please move. It's a public safety issue. It's being attended to, and we need to come back here and talk about other areas that are facing equally similar challenges. We're just talking about the Brookside Fast Parklands area and the problems around that area. You've got other areas in upper stream areas, Kericho Kubwa and others, which we're dealing with. And we're telling Kenyans, because this is the time, I like what the governor always says when we have these meetings. He says, we are the generation who has the opportunity to make that change. We've complained a lot about these issues, but we really need to fix the nation and get things sorted out.
Sorry, I know we're completely out of time, but it's a disservice to this fixer if I don't ask. Architect Mumo, please speak on Kangemi Dam in the Kangemi Resho area. There's a governor that has built apartments over a stream draining the dam. Is this within your purview? Yes,
so we are coming up. So that's part of the Kibagare River system. And we had a meeting with the Parklands, Westlands, Kibagare Residents Association 3 days ago. And we are starting the exercise now of mapping those areas going up to, and we have to start at Kangemi Dam, because Kangemi Dam also is similar to Nairobi Dam. And we've only paid attention to Nairobi Dam because of the recreational value we've always attached to it, but we've never seen the other dams. So we'll be doing the same with Kangemi Dam. So I can assure them we'll be there.
All right.
The multi-agency team will be there.
Thank you so much. That's Architect Mumo Musuva talking to us about Musuva. Apologies. Today I've misnamed you, miscareered you. Apologies. It's Architect Mumo Musuva. Yes. He is, of course, from the Nairobi River Commission, a commissioner there, and he's been talking to us about the Nairobi dam crisis. And if you've listened, and we'll keep repeating this, if you need to move, we will keep repeating it. And of course, we'll try and figure out what is being done to ensure that the movement is also possible and quick. But hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. When we come back, we'll be talking about multiple sclerosis.